Have you ever wondered why your favorite product sometimes costs more than you expect? Or why a company can suddenly offer a discount on something you thought was pricey? Well, it all comes down to something called the total manufacturing cost variance. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but stick with me because it's actually pretty fascinating once you break it down. So, let's get into it. The total manufacturing cost variance is essentially the difference between what a company expected to spend on making a product and what they actually spent. This variance can be favorable, meaning they spent less than expected, or unfavorable, meaning they overshot their budget. Imagine walking into a store and finding that your favorite gadget is on sale. That's a favorable variance at work. The company managed to produce it for less than they anticipated. On the flip side, if you see a price hike, that could be due to an unfavorable variance, where costs exceeded their original estimates. Now, why should you care about this? Well, understanding this concept can give you insight into how businesses operate and why prices fluctuate. The total manufacturing cost variance is made up of three key components: factory overhead cost variance, direct labor cost variance, and direct materials cost variance. Let's break these down a bit. First up, we have the factory overhead cost variance. This includes all those sneaky costs that aren't directly tied to the production of a product, but are still essential for making it happen. Think rent for the factory space, utilities, and even insurance. If a company spends more on these overhead costs than they planned, that's an unfavorable variance, and it can really eat into their profits. On the other hand, if they manage to keep these costs down, it can lead to a favorable variance, giving them a little extra cash to play with. Next, we move on to direct labor cost variance. This one's all about the people doing the work. If a company ends up paying more for labor than they expected, maybe due to overtime or higher wage rates, that's an unfavorable variance. It's like when you think you're just going to grab a quick coffee and end up spending more because you couldn't resist that delicious pastry. But if they spend less on labor because they've optimized their processes or had fewer hours worked, that's a favorable variance. It's all about efficiency here. Finally, we have the direct materials cost variance. This is where it gets really interesting. This variance looks at the cost of the raw materials used in production. If the price of materials goes up, say due to a supply chain issue or a sudden increase in demand, that can lead to an unfavorable variance. You know how when there's a shortage of something, like toilet paper during a crisis, the prices skyrocket? That's exactly what happens here. Conversely, if a company finds a cheaper supplier or reduces waste, they can achieve a favorable variance. It's like finding a great deal on those materials you need for a DIY project. So, what causes these variances? There are a ton of factors at play. Changes in demand can really shake things up. If a product suddenly becomes super popular, the company might struggle to keep up with the demand, leading to higher costs. On the other hand, if demand drops, they might have excess inventory, which can also lead to unfavorable variances. It's a balancing act that businesses have to navigate constantly. Now, let's talk implications. What does all this mean for a business? If the total manufacturing cost variance is negative, it means they're spending more than expected, which can lead to lower profits. That's not good news for anyone involved. On the flip side, a positive variance can boost profits and give the company more breathing room financially. It's like when you find out you have a little extra money left over at the end of the month. It opens up new possibilities. Tracking the total manufacturing cost variance is crucial for businesses. It helps them identify areas where they can cut costs and improve efficiency. Imagine trying to navigate a maze without a map. You might get lost. But with this variance, companies can pinpoint where they need to make changes, whether that's tweaking their production process, negotiating better prices for materials, or finding ways to improve labor efficiency. So, when should businesses review this variance? Regularly, of course. It's like checking your bank account to see if you're on track with your budget. Whenever there are changes in production processes, demand, or costs, it's essential to take a closer look at the total manufacturing cost variance. This proactive approach can help avoid nasty surprises down the line. In conclusion, The total manufacturing cost variance might sound technical, but it's a vital metric that can reveal a lot about how a company operates. By understanding it, businesses can improve their processes, save money, and ultimately provide better value to you, the consumer. So the next time you see a price change on a product, you can think back to this and understand just what might be happening behind the scenes. Isn't that a neat way to look at the world?